Everybody. So I've had an absolutely horrible weekend. Yesterday we had a giant snowstorm here in Ontario. We were slammed with over a foot of snow in less than 12-hour period. And I was just swamped at work on Friday night. I mean, it was unreal. And unfortunately, I when I was coming out of work, I fell on the driveway, which wouldn't be too bad, but unfortunately, because of the arthritis in my knees, the swelling in my legs, and a whole bunch of other things, I can't get up off the ground. So falling down is like my worst nightmare. So I got to sit on the cold, wet, snowy, icy ground for half an hour until rescue services showed up, and it's just so humiliating. I was looking around going, I hope nobody's filming this. But I survived. And then to make matters even worse, my landlords, who are just, they did not get the driveway cleared because whatever. And I even called them. I'm like, when is this driveway going to be cleared? It was not cleared until 3 o'clock, so I couldn't go home from work. So I basically had to sit in my car and drive around for 5 hours, 6 hours, however long it was between when I got out of work, got off the ground, and anyway, it was just a really rough day yesterday. And I didn't get to bed until after 3:30, and I didn't get to sleep till about 5. Then I got to get up 10 to go to work. So just not a good day, not a fun day. But I survived, and here we are. And I wanted to, back to what I was saying, I've been, again, behind on my reading a little bit, but today I would like to do the Listen to the Music book tag, which was created by Gareth over at Book Songs and Other Magic, and I watched the tag on the Grape Jelly Library, so that's where I picked it up. I'm not going to tag anybody, I never do, I'm like really lazy about these things, but I'm always happy to jump on the tag wagon. So the prompts. Okay, number 1, name a song that always makes you happy. All right, a song that always makes you happy. I'm gonna say probably quite a few songs by Jazzberry Ram. They were an indie band based out of BC back in the 90s that I got to see play live twice when they toured around here, and they were great. They always put on a great performance, really high energy. So I'll put some links in the doobly-doo there, but I'm gonna say Maggie was. It's a ska-influenced love song, and it's very upbeat and very happy. And it's got a nice message, too. So, Maggie by Jazzberry Ram. And also, whenever I'm feeling down in the dumps, I like to turn on videos of, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, Bhangra dancing, which is from India. And it is so awesome because everybody, I mean, first of all, the dancers are fantastic. And they've always got these giant smiles on their faces. And there's a Bhangra dancing group out of, I believe they're from Nova Scotia, and they dance and snow shovel at the same time. So especially days like today when there's just so much snow, and to see somebody being happy to be shoveling the snow is always fun. So I can turn that on and just complete any bad mood just goes right out the window. Name a song that's a great fit for when you're in a pensive mood. I'm going to say Night Swimming by REM, which is, I mean, the piano and cello combination is just so soothing and lovely. And it also, I grew up in Sarnia, which is right on the tip of Lake Huron, and there were 2 beautiful beaches. And that's one thing I have always missed about moving away from there is just having the bodies of water around, naturally occurring water. It's Lake Huron is it feels like home, even when I've been away for years and years, and I go back, and it's just suddenly it's a right place to be. And one of the fun things to do at night is to sneak onto the private beaches because there's there's two beaches. There's Canatera, and then there's Colborne, and Colborne is the smaller beach, and it backs up onto private property. So one of the fun things to do in Sarnia during the summertime is to sneak onto the beach at night and go swimming. And so the song has that private summertime being somewhere you're not supposed to be vibe. That's very nostalgic, and it's just a great song. Name a song that changed your taste in music. I can name two. When I was a kid, obviously I was an 80s kid, and so I listened to your basic 80s pop, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Wham, loved all that stuff, right? Which my mother used to tease me about. She hated it. But my sister went away for a while, and she came back, and she brought these tapes, and that was the beginning of enjoying classic rock. And it was the opening to Jimi Hendrix' Purple Haze that made me a rock fan. It was just that opening, and then it just starts crash. It was like a window into another world. It was so cool. And so I wanted to know more about this, and so I spent the next few years just getting my hands on all the classic rock I could. And then when I was about, it would have been somewhere around late 1988, so I was about 14, and I was watching the Power Hour on Much Music, which I loved, and Trip It the Brain by Suicidal Tendencies came on, and that was what made me a metalhead through high school. I loved that shit. It was so exciting, and it was just like this adrenaline blast. It was like, and it blew away everything that I had ever experienced before, and it felt like the first music that I discovered on my own rather than through somebody else. So name a recent song that you just discovered and love. I have to admit, unfortunately, the last kind of newer artist that I listened to was Adele, and that was 10 years ago. More than that, like 12 years ago. I have not listened to a lot of new music lately. It's a really, I watched Glee, so I got a little bit of knowing a little bit of what was out there, but other than that, I haven't followed music for a long time. It's a heartbreaking thing to admit, but it's the truth. And I think it was probably around like 20 years ago that I stopped following music, just because you know what it is to me that killed music? Fucking auto-tune. I despise auto-tune, and I can't stand the sound of it. It's like, oh, just shut up already. So recent song that I just discovered and love. Where was I? Yeah, so I was talking about how I haven't listened to a lot of new music. Part of the reason was that, for about 10 years of my life, I was really involved in the local music scene. But after my friend Matt passed away, it just got really, really hard to be around anybody that was doing that sort of thing. I just couldn't do it for a long time. And when you sort of get away from it, how do I explain this? I recently listened to the audiobook of Ben Folds' A Dream of Lightning Bugs, which, by the way, I do highly recommend if you enjoy music biographies. Ben Folds' book was fantastic, especially the audiobook, because you get to hear Ben Folds telling his story in his own voice, which is, he's got this great kind of little southern accent. His whole persona as the kind of reedy, nerdy, smart guy, smart ass with a keyboard is on full display. And he, and he also kind of has his piano there, so little accents, and, it's just this nice, it's like sitting down and listening to somebody tell stories. It's a really good audiobook to listen to. But he makes a point at the end of the book where he talks about how rock and roll and music in general, like pop music, being involved with it, it's a young person's game. And it kind of broke my heart, but I also kind of related to it at the same time. Music doesn't have the same place in my life as it used to, especially after Matt passed away. And it just got to be too hard. So I will leave it to the young people. And I mean, I'll always turn on a song that I like here and there, but it doesn't have to be the constant background of my life anymore. And I know there's going to be people who disagree with what I have to say, and that's great. If there's a place for music in your life, more power to you. I admire and appreciate and respect that for you. Name 3 bands or artists that you love. Well, Ben Folds is one. My friend Matt, I will put another link to his... there's a couple of videos that were shot before he passed away. And he was so talented. And I mean, it was just such a loss when he went, when he was no longer around anymore. I'm going to say the Bonaducci's. They were another band that I got to see here. And sort of late 90s punk pop. They were... The Democracy Asleep is another... How do I explain this? It's a deceptively upbeat album with really heavy lyrics, because the Doug McLean, the singer and primary songwriter, he was dealing with the death of a friend of it at the time. So it's a little bit tough to listen to in one sitting. Once you kind of get used to the heaviness of the lyrics, it does get a little bit better. Plus, he complimented my poetry, so I will follow that man till the ends of the earth. And then, you know, I mean, all of the bands that I grew up loving: Jane's Addiction, Led Zeppelin, Slayer, Metallica, so many bands. I could just sit here and name the bands that I love for the rest of my life, too. Even though I don't listen to a whole lot of music anymore. What instrument would you like to be able to play? Well, I took music for a few years in high school, and unfortunately, I just have no talent whatsoever. I'm okay with that. So I played tenor saxophone in high school for 4 years, and I also took guitar lessons for a couple years and practiced every day, but just never got any better. So unfortunately, I mean, some people have it and some people don't. My dad was a musician. He played piano, guitar, flute, accordion. Like he could just play anything, and he was great. But I did not inherit that talent, unfortunately. So I was thinking about what instrument, and I thought, you know, it would be nice to play the guitar, it would be nice to play the piano. But really, honestly, if I could pick an instrument, it would be drums and percussion. I have zero coordination, so I'm terrible at it. But I find that the drummer is always kind of the most valuable, and the person that it's always hardest to find. It is really hard for any band to find a good drummer. You can find guitar players everywhere. Keyboard players, not as much, but good drummers, really few and far between. Name a fiction book with music at the center of the narrative. Now, Grape Jelly mentioned Daisy Jones and the Six, which I just ordered. I'm always down for a semi shout out to classic rock, and apparently Daisy Jones is kind of loosely inspired by the Fleetwood Mac story. So I'm looking forward to that. But there are some fantastic rock and roll books. The Scream by John Skipp and Craig Spector, Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill, and We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix, both of which I've reviewed recently on this channel. I like to do the Metal Mondays series, which there should be another one coming up soon. I'm doing a reread of Skin by Kathy Koja, and so that's got it's got a rock band at the center of it. But I'm gonna reserve one of my favorite is, actually, and Criminale just talked about High Fidelity, so that brought up some pretty nostalgic vibes. High Fidelity is a great read, but I have mixed feelings about it because Rob is a fucking asshole. He's a terrible guy, but he gets by being just marginally less awful than other guys. And he even says, his saving grace as far as dating and his appeal to women is that he just is right bland middle of the road. Because he's not a completely abusive dick, well, somehow this elevates him. But 15 years volunteering for community radio, and those minor characters, I know those guys. I know so many of those guys. I think in some ways I probably was one of those guys for a while, where Dominic Noble points out that these guys mistake having taste in music for having a personality. But yeah, it's High Fidelity. I really enjoyed the movie of High Fidelity, and then I read the book, and the book it's really good, and the adaptation was fairly close. But the book is set in kind of Thatcher era, late 80s Britain, and it's very British. And then they sort of transposed it to late 90s, early aughts era in Chicago. So it's really interesting to see how easy it was to transpose it that way and to Americanize it, but not really lose any of the spirit of the story, which I thought was an interesting way to adapt the story. I have not seen the series, though. And another book that I really enjoyed was Whale Music by Paul Corrington, and I highly recommend it if you like that sort of book. The story, and I saw the movie many times before I ever read the book, and I love the movie. The story is about this guy, Dennis Howell, and he and his brother, Danny, were the Howell brothers. They were a kind of surf 70s era band. And the story is, of course, loosely inspired by Brian Wilson. And so after Danny passes away in a car crash, Dennis Howell becomes a complete recluse. So he kind of gets lost in drugs and food and, the things that rock stars do when they're no longer making music. Because, I think it would be very hard to be a rock star and have that whole life of excess for a while and then not have it anymore for whatever reason. And I think that's one of the reasons that I was always so fascinated by the show Rock of Love with Bret Michaels. Because, what do you do when you're 45 and you're still kind of in that, but at the same time you have to be a real person in some ways because you've got kids and relationships and so on. Oh, but no, you go on to Rock of Love and just become a complete spectacle. But anyway, so back to Whale Music. And so he's been a recluse for however long. I think it's been like 10 or 15 years by the time the story starts. So one day he's doing his normal routine and he finds a girl on the couch. And she just sort of broke into his house and decides to stay with him. And I love the movie because it's got some of the best lines ever. He's like, are you the new cook? Are you the new housekeeper? Because they tend to be Germanic and more given to wearing clothing. And then he says, well, there's money there and go to the store. And he says, that's how you get rid of aliens, is send them out for groceries. But my personal favorite line of the whole movie, he, through various events, has this party and some of his past friends show up again. But it's been a long time. So they've now converted to being born-again Christians. And they're very well-meaning people, too. And they say to him, have you accepted the Lord Jesus into your heart? And he says, no, the place is a mess. Which is probably one of my all-time favorite movie lines ever. So yeah, Whale Music by Paul Corrington it's worth a read. I'm not sure if I like the movie better or not, but the movie is wonderful. And the book is also wonderful. So, I guess that is it for the tag. I just wanted to talk about some music-themed books that I like, which I'll always talk about. Because even if I don't listen to a whole lot of music anymore, I still like books about music. And the last is tag some other people, which I'm not going to do. You know me, I never tag anybody. But if you do want to participate, please head over to Book Songs and Other Magic and check that out, or Grape Jelly Library. And I hope you're reading lots of horror. Have a great day.